This is Everyday Discipleship, a podcast whose mission is to equip Christians to live lives with a biblical worldview. My name is Josh Rice, and with me is Cole Chenal. We're both pastors at Reformation Baptist Church in Centerton, Arkansas. Today we're going to be continuing. I think we're on part 5, which I think we've already stretched a little further than the first pitch. I think we thought maybe 3, and we're going more than 5. So as we go on, we're talking about how Christians can save the world through building Christian culture.
Yep.
And so today we're going to get into, it's really interesting to me, and I'm just going to let you set it up, Cole, because you've got it all written out, and I think you can do it better than me. So set us up for today.
That's very kind of you to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm winging it.
So obviously, we're going through Gashmu Saith It by Doug Wilson, and these are all just kind of rules that he didn't write these down explicitly, but as I was reading it, I would write down the rules about, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to be thinking about. How do we do this in our church to build a truly distinct light of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
City on a hill that can preach the gospel faithfully, be a distinct counterculture to the world going on, and that more people can see, not only hear the gospel, but also see the power of the gospel in the lives of the church. And so this one is working for the kingdom. The idea of the two rules we're going to be talking about are both related, but one is all of Christ for all of life. That this idea that there is no sacred and secular divide. That Christ is the Lord of all of life, therefore everything we do is for the Lord. So, and specifically talking about work and business and vocation or calling. And then the second rule that we're going to be talking about today is going to be building a Christian economy. Basically, as Christians start to work together, how do they need to do that biblically? And so that we strive for peace and unity in the body.
Yeah, this subject is exciting to me because it really helps with some confusion that I think I had early in my Christian walk when we would read passages where Jesus would say that, the world will know you by your love for one another. And I would think about, I'm going to church, right? And I would think, how is that really going to happen? Like, by definition, there shouldn't be a ton of lost people in the church. So how are they going to see me? Like, how is that going to draw people to Christ, right? There was really a disconnect from me. And these last few years, as we've kind of grappled and come around to this sort of worldview, right? Like this worldview where it really is Christ is king over every single part of our life, King of kings and Lord of lords. We would say that with our mouths, but I think functionally in my brain, in my worldview, that's only really started in the last few years to think like, hey, I can answer that question now. It's because when you see the world falling apart, basically the satanic culture getting its just due right now and its just desserts and falling apart at the, ripping apart the seams. If there is a Christian culture, we can't replace satanic culture with nothing, which I think is what the American church has tried to do for a long time. When you replace it with something, and you have this bonded community where we love each other and we work together, that is something that I think a world who's looking for answers sees and thinks, hey, I want some of that. It starts to make perfect sense to me then. So I really like this. That, the sacred secular divide has really, really hampered the work of the gospel, I think, in America.
Yeah, I think it's this weird idea. And two, what's so funny is it diminishes what people are doing for the kingdom. Because I think we have a merely spiritual kingdom idea. And now, obviously, the kingdom is spiritual.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's not spiritual or that it's physical. When Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world," what he meant, it's amazing to me if people miss this out. Because that's what people say. Well, Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world," so it's only the gospel's only about spiritual things. It's not about anything out there in the world. When Jesus said that, right after he said, "Otherwise, my disciples would take up arms and fight you." When Jesus is saying, "My kingdom is not of this world," what he's saying is, my kingdom is not conquer like the kingdoms of this world.
Right.
It does not draw power and authority like the kingdoms of this world. It is a kingdom from above. It is a new Jerusalem from above. And so when Jesus is saying, this spiritual kingdom does have a real world effect. I mean,
that's how he taught us to pray, right? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
And so a lot of Christians don't understand that you don't have to be a pastor or you don't have to be a missionary to build the kingdom, to advance the kingdom of God in the world.
Yeah, just very practically speaking, most Christians won't be.
No.
Right? If we have 1 billion Christians, we don't need 900 million pastors.
Yeah. I mean, if the whole church is full of pastors, who's going to sit in the congregation and listen to someone preach?
Right.
I mean, the idea is that, this was something that was really kind of regathered in the Reformation, that the reformers really started being like, hey, wait a second. What you do matters for the Lord. Whatever your job is for the Lord, and you better be doing it for the Lord and for his glory, right? I can't remember who it was. It might have been Luther, but I could be totally wrong on that. But like the shoe cobbler for the Lord, right?
Yeah, that was Luther.
You make the best dang shoes you can for the Lord,
right?
That you provide for your family and you make the best shoes possible because you're doing all things to the glory of God. And so like what we really want, I guess that's like the first rule. When we talk about all of Christ for all of life, right? This whole podcast is built on biblical worldview, seeing everything from a biblical lens and applying the Bible to every aspect of your life. But what we're talking about specifically here is applying the Bible in your vocation. And by vocation, I think we automatically think whatever you're getting a paycheck for. But really the true term of vocation means calling. Yeah. Whatever your calling is. And people use that calling in terms of ministry and stuff like that. But your calling is whatever God has called you to do in your life. So if you're a stay-at-home mom, your calling is your vocation is being a mom, raising your children. If you're in IT, if you're a banker, if you're a teacher, if you're a whatever, that is your vocation and your calling that God sovereignly has given you to do, to be in this world, to provide for your family, but also to bless this world through good Christian work. And then we should be doing these things then as Christians.
Yeah, I think here's the thing, right? Is when we think about it, is when the calling matches up with the Christian ethic and the Christian work ethic. What happens is that Christians naturally rise to the top in these vocations.
They should,
and then they adorn the gospel with their work, right? And I think what we've missed there is that we think people only adorn the gospel with their pastoral work, when what we've done is when we confine Christianity and evangelism to the church, to within the church in kind of a pietistic way, where it's just the spiritual kingdom where we get together and we do all our spiritual things this 1 hour on Sunday, and then we have our quiet time in the mornings every day by ourselves, right? What we've done is we've basically given me that confusion on that question. How does the world see this and want any of it, right? How are they ever going to see it? But if you are, let's say you're an attorney and you have studied up on the law, you've become a brilliant attorney, you have the calling, you have the talent, and then when you work like a Christian, you stick out in the world of attorneys, right? You're just going to be different. And that brings a lot of opportunities to show, hey, I'm a Christian doing Christian work to the glory of God out here in the world by giving people justice.
Yeah, it's right? Like this idea that God, typically speaking, like when we do all things for his glory, he blesses the harvest, right? Like he blesses our work. He makes it fruitful. He makes it enjoyable to us because, it's amazing that you should what your job is, right? Somebody might be out there like whatever your job is, it might not be your favorite thing in the world to do, but you can have great joy in doing it because you could be doing it for the Lord, right? If you're building houses, you can be building houses for the Lord. You can be building great homes for other people. You can be giving quality work, giving people a fair deal, fair shake, whenever there's not that in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And God can be honored in that. And so it takes whatever your job is, even the most mundane task, and it elevates it to this thing that has really eternal significance because it's for the glory of God. It's not just arbitrary work. It's not just something you're doing Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You're doing something that actually brings God glory in the way you work, because we should start seeing our jobs as Christians from a Christian view. That this job, there are going to be days where it just feels like a long day and you're slugging through, right? But the heart of the Christian really, overall, should be, I want to do the best job I possibly can. I want to serve my employer. That's what Paul says, like to slaves serve your masters as to the Lord. That I want to serve my employer as if he's Christ. Because really, when you're working for Christ.
Yeah, so it's kind of in that household government, right? Is that, you are putting in your labor, and we don't want to be thieves, right? We want to be a hard worker. We want to be a cheerful worker. And I can just tell you from my experience, I've been in the workforce for nearly 20 years now in the career I'm in now, and I can tell you that looking around, there's not a lot of people that cheerfully go to work. There's not a lot of people that consistently come to work every day, and do their job without being harangued and harassed into doing it. And I can tell you just the simple steps of faithfulness. And we talk about that all the time. Being a Christian is first and foremost about being faithful, right? We are people of the book, and we want to do what God has told us to do, right? And so for the worker, it's really to go in and do the faithful thing, to earn a living, to do your job. And when you do that, you kind of you separate yourself, and you get a reputation for being, hey, this is the person who gets their job done.
Yeah, how can you not be fruitful in your work if you're saying, I'm doing the best job I possibly can for the blessing of others? You're going to do well, and no matter what job you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this element where you should, as a man, like find your job, your calling, right? Because you're the one called to provide for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where you do whatever it takes to provide for them because that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're called to do.
Yeah.
What you're called to do ultimately is provide. So I don't care if you love your job or not. You
Right.
find something that you can make money in, do it. But there is also things that we should be thinking as Christians. Okay, how do we, being an entrepreneur, I think some people think the only people sold out for Christ are people that are doing quote unquote explicit full-time ministry.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. Yeah, you can be a business owner that is doing your business in a distinctly Christian way and sold out for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whether it's as a banker, you're not giving predatory loans, or as a lawyer, you're not doing divorce cases or encouraging or profiting off of people's wickedness or lies, right? You can be doing things where, as a Christian in your business, where you're giving people a fair wage if you're an employer. That's one huge thing that Christians, especially Christian business owners or people in positions of management, they should be using their management for the blessing of those people underneath them.
Yep.
Because that's what Christ does.
Mm-hmm.
Christ blesses those underneath him.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a passage I just heard. It's in 1 Timothy chapter 6, and it talks about those who are wealthy, right? And it says that those who are wealthy should give thanks to God for the gift of their wealth, and then that they should bless others with it. Not through coercion, right? But understanding that God gives gifts, and as we give gifts out of our wealth, and in America, we're mostly wealthy, okay? Mm-hmm. When we give gifts out of our wealth, what it does is it brings glory to God. And it's the blessing of the covenant in a way. It's not prosperity gospel, but when you are in line with how God has made the world and how he designs it, when you work along with what he's designed things to do, things go well for you in general. It's a normative practice.
Yeah, like with the measure you give, it'll be given unto you.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that measure, and listen, this strikes at me in my heart, is that measure generous or is it stingy?
Yeah. That's a real tough spot for me.
And especially for like employers that are, it's like, what does that look like? Employers, you give your employees a good work environment, a just work environment. You're paying them the fair wage, right? Paul uses it to talk about pastors, like don't muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. Mm-hmm. The principle of that law is pay your laborers. Mm-hmm. Pay them a fair and living wage. You should strive to give them a good work environment, time off with their families, a good wage. And as the employee, you should not seek to take advantage of your employer in those things, mm-hmm. but you should actually honor and bless your employer. Paul talks about too, especially if he's a brother.
Yeah.
Because not only are you serving Christ, you're getting to serve a brother as well with your employment by doing a good job for them. And so the Christian, if you're going to put a bow on it, I guess, like in a way, what we're really saying is the Christian should be the best employee at their job mm-hmm. every time.
Yeah.
The absolute best one.
Yeah, because, what you lack in talent, you make up in trying to learn the craft. Mm-hmm. You're spending time trying to practice, trying to master the craft. And just in this world, look, I'm at the ground floor of this as a high school teacher. Like I have my finger firmly on the pulse of what's going into the workforce right now. And I'm going to tell you, Christians have a rare opportunity today that if you show up with a good attitude every single day, ready to work, you are going to stand out mm-hmm. in this world. So as God has shaken things up, and we've talked a lot about that culturally, politically, spiritually, we've talked a lot about the shaking, right? There's a lot of things that have happened where things have started to topple over and things have shaken out. And one of those things is that we've seen that, there's labor shortages around the country because there's not a lot of people who will go and put in an honest day's work. So there's a real opportunity to adorn the gospel again, right? To put it on, to bring beauty mm-hmm. to what Christ has done by doing what he says, right? And the way we do that is by being faithful employees. It's not that difficult, but it does take fortitude and it takes faithfulness.
Well, and so like here's what's funny is that when you talk about how you're working for the kingdom no matter what job you're doing, mm-hmm. right? Spiritually, that's happening because you're bringing glory to Christ, you're providing for your family, all that stuff too. But I think like what helps people, because I can see how somebody would say, well, how am I actually building the kingdom though? Just at my job as a banker or a construction worker that's building roads or an architect or whatever, or dentist, doctor, mm-hmm. right? And passage I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm still fleshing it out in my mind because I don't think I know yet all the implications of it. But it's definitely in Revelation, and it has other instances in the Old Testament too, where it talks about the church, like the New Jerusalem, and the kings of the earth bring their glory into it. Mm-hmm. The kings of the earth bring their glory into it. Like, what does that mean? That nations are glorious, right? America is a glorious nation, mm-hmm. as wicked as we are. What God has done here so far in blessing us has been glorious. And if the kings of the earth will one day, because all kings will submit to Christ, that's what the scriptures promise, that all kings will bow down to him, that Psalm 2. When Christ is asking for the nations as his inheritance and the ends of the earth as his possession from the Lord, from the Father, and that's, you got to remember, that's in the context of kings raging against Christ. So that's talking about whole nations submitting to him and obeying him. And so when we talk about the kings bringing their glory into it, that means everything glorious about their nation will now be for the glory of Christ. It's like when they bring their glory into it, all their roads, all their buildings, all their economic transactions and economic wealth and prosperity, all their medical advancements, that everything good in this world, that the pagans, it's amazing how God talks about in scriptures how they build things, but then we get to inherit it. The meek shall inherit the earth. The Christians will reign on the earth, right? And they're building all this stuff for us. Just like the Canaanites in Israel, before Israel went in there, they had all these massive cities and all this amazing things. And God's saying, hey, I'm going to let you go take over them, and you're going to dwell in houses you didn't build.
Right.
And you're going to have vineyards you didn't plant. It's like the pagans are going to build it for you, and then you're going to reap all the rewards of it. Well, that's what God is doing now. The pagans are building it for us, and we're going to build on top of it. Like the example would be, say, doctors, right? The example I always give the doctors is, look at what we've done just medical technology-wise over the past 1,000, 2,000 years.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And imagine now, that's with a field that genuinely, truly hates God and does not give glory to God because they believe in evolutionary biology. They believe in, they don't believe in the Imago Dei. And look at all the blessing and all the good things they've given. I mean, infant mortality is down way a lot. Cancer is able to be treated at least. It's not an automatic death sentence every single time. I mean, they've done amazing things. And now imagine what that would look like if the medical field brought their glory into the church, brought their glory into the kingdom of God, and said, God, this is all yours, and what kind of blessings God would then give out in understanding and advancement. I mean, that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, you think of it this way, right? America really is wealthy just beyond historical imagination, right? Like all the nations of the world, like the closest you could get really would be thinking through like the amount of gold that Solomon had, right? Like but even Solomon, like imagine if he had seen an iPhone, right? Like just the random stuff that we carry around in our pockets nowadays. But when you think about what set this up is that America had some liberty, right? There was freedom, and through that came an explosion of invention, technology, and riches, the likes of which the world has never seen before. And this is with a country that's working off the fumes, right? It's an apostate country that turned away from its covenant and is still working on the afterburners. How much more will there be wealth and riches and medical advancements when we give it all to Christ and we follow his law?
That no matter what you're doing, everything is done to the glory of Christ, whatever that is. That everything is for his glory. And that's also the thing, too, because, right, the danger is, and we see this, too, when everything is sacred, right, it's like that. It's like the dumb guys are like, well, I have church with my 3 buddies at a bar eating pizza. Well, we got to keep Christ at the center of it. It's all about Christ. It's not just about, well, we do whatever we want and we say we're glorifying God. You could, just because you enjoy things, yes, you can enjoy things to the glory of God, but when you talk about doing a Christian work, you're doing work to the glory of Christ specifically, and not just saying, well, it's sacred because I'm a Christian.
So it's not coming and putting, it's not like wrapping it up in a bow after the fact.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, you have to set your mind intentionally before it happens.
Yes.
Like I'm going to work today, and I'm going to try to glorify God today.
It's that intentionality in your life, not just this passiveness, but this activeness.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of that before. That is interesting.
Well, and so like that kind of transitions us into like the second thing, which is building a Christian economy. And if we're talking about, hey, all Christians need to work for the glory of Christ, they're building the kingdom for the glory of Christ, and no matter what job they're in, what's going to happen is we're going to start working together, which you should. Right? Like I prefer to do business with Christians. Why? Because I know I'm not going to get ripped off, and I'm blessing a brother. But that can also come with some tension, and some hardship.
We are sinners.
We are all sinners.
Yes.
And so, how do you do that? Like, how do you build a truly Christian economy? Because when I say that, I'm not just talking about like, hey, let's build other secret black market economy
or a compound.
That's not what I'm doing. Right. I'm saying, how do we do our jobs and interact in business relationships with one another in a distinctly Christian way that honors Christ and does not bring disrepute on the name of Christ by just basically behaving just like the world does in their business dealings?
Well, I think the first part of that, and I definitely want to get to the sin part, and that's where we're going to park some time there and how we actually make it happen once we start. But I think the first part is starting. I think that's something that many Christians, very few. Wilson's church is probably one of the few that's even thought about this until the last 3 or 4 years. Because what we have to do is we have to first, just like we just talked about at the end of the last section, where we can't go to the bar and then say later that was sacred. We got to have some intentionality and some proactiveness. I think we got to do the same thing in how we engage in the economy. Is we got to think a little bit like, hey, how am I making the decisions about how I'm about to spend money and who I'm about to do business with? Mm-hmm. And I think, we can't just mindlessly, go on Amazon and buy something because it's cheaper, even though nowadays it's probably not anyway. We have to think a little bit about, well, I'm not into boycotts and all that kind of stuff, but we do have to think about like, hey, is there a better option in a way we can bless each other? And once we start that, we're going to get involved in these relationships. Like, for example, you might be using a Christian mechanic, mm-hmm. right? And there's going to be some natural tension there because if you go to the Christian mechanic and he says that your transmission repair is going to cost, $5,000, you're going to feel the burn on that, mm-hmm. right? And you're going to come to a decision point. And so because of this thing, because money is the medium, because we're going to all be tempted to want to hold on to it, we have tension mixed in.
Yeah, it's like, I think like one thing, the first thing I'd probably say is this is where God's law becomes so important for the Christian, because God wants us to use just weights and measures, mm-hmm. that we don't put our thumb on the scale,
right? That
we want to have, right? Yes, you should be able to make money, mm-hmm. but you charge fair wages. You charge a fair amount, and you don't try to take advantage of other people, and you don't try to take advantage of it. Like, so from the business perspective, I don't want to try to take advantage of other Christians by saying, well, I'm a Christian, so they kind of feel obligated to use me.
Right.
Right, because what Wilson talks about, I think, in the book, where there's kind of two sides of it. On the one hand, we as Christians, like if you and I are doing a business deal together, mm-hmm. and you're selling me something, mm-hmm. I should not go to you with the mentality that, well, Josh will give me a deal.
He's going to give me an under market value deal.
Yeah, he's going to give me a deal, or he should give me a deal, or he's obligated to give me a deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, Wilson has like this line in there where if you got to check your heart first when you're engaging in business with other Christians, because if that's your heart, if you're using them because you want a deal, just go do business with the pagans, because mm-hmm. that's what pagans do.
Yeah,
that we should be wanting to do, not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. Like, mm-hmm. I'm going to you because you're going to do a fair deal, mm-hmm. not a deal. Does that make sense?
Right.
And that's the mentality we as Christians have to have, and trusting each other that we are giving each other fair deals. Mm-hmm. And that's from the business side of it. That if you're selling me something, you also shouldn't expect me to use you just because we're part of the same mm-hmm. church. Like the example would be, man, because like you see it sometimes, and this is where it gets like real weird and real tense whenever you start getting inbred in your church. Yeah. So you have 5 realtors in your church.
Yep. Yeah.
And you're looking for, hey, I'm going to buy a house. Well, which realtor do you go to? And you're all members of the same church. Well, every realtor needs to go, hey, Lan, it's all fine. God's taking care of me. God's provided for me. It's all my providence. It's all in his providence mm-hmm. of my life. That we don't expect people to use us, or we don't get offended when they don't use us.
Right.
That we have charity with one another. We learn that God is the one that provides for us, and he's going to. Mm-hmm. It's like there's that balance there where it's like, on the one hand, I don't go to other Christians for deals. If they want to give me a deal, it's their prerogative, but I go not expecting it.
Right.
And in the people doing business or owning the business, they shouldn't be offended or feel like other people are obligated to use them just because mm-hmm. they're members of the same church.
Well, and as we start doing this, like I think it's also important to understand that there's lots of different kinds of commerce, right? So if you're a mechanic, you're doing a job, right? Mm-hmm. There's an obvious thing I'm doing. So as a customer who's going to get their car worked on, you are looking for information, but the information's not the primary thing. You want the car fixed, right? However, if you have an attorney or a doctor,
that's a big one,
or someone like that, they are primarily in an information business, right? And so I see this all the time, and it gets awkward. Like, let's say you go to a doctor, you become friends with this doctor, right? And then every time a medical thing comes up, you start sending them text messages mm-hmm. asking for their medical advice. Look, that's being unjust.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where that's what starts to cause this thing, and it is kind of the greed, right? It's kind of this idea of like, hey, I don't have to make $100, doctor visit because I'll just send my doctor friend a text,
question.
And they'll tell me it's just one question. It only takes 5 seconds. It's like, Yeah, but that's their job. That's their business.
Yeah.
Right? The businesses, they have the expertise and the expenses to be able to give medical advice.
Yeah.
And so that's where it gets weird, right? And that's the same thing as going to the mechanic and thinking, hey, I just want this done for parts. Like that's insane, right?
Yeah.
That person's not going to be able to stay in business that way. And so here's the thing, right? The overriding principle of it is that we can't have a love of money. As Christians, we give each other the benefit of the doubt. We're honest with each other, trying to assume that all of us are working, as we just talked about in the last section, unto the glory of God. But also, we can't have that love of money, and that's what brings the problems in. And when that starts to happen, there will be disputes. Okay, so you'll think somebody gave you a raw deal, and how dare them? They're a Christian, and many, many problems come from this.
Well, the other thing, man. So get into the realm of the disputes of it.
Yeah.
So I think Wilson makes this distinction, because just because you're a Christian doing business doesn't mean you are then, it's this idea of this tension between do all things to the glory of God and nobody's perfect. Right? That you should be seeking to do excellent work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do a job and you don't do excellent work and somebody chooses to go somewhere else, that's not a sin.
Right.
To do that. If they didn't get the job they wanted or wasn't exactly what they wanted, that's not a sin to do that. Now, on the other side of that, Wilson makes the distinction of how should a Christian handle that whenever, say, you did a job for me, I didn't really like it, and somebody else comes and says, hey, Josh did that for you, what did you think? Mm-hmm. How do you interact with that? Well, if it was just hey, time, price, whatever, I think you can say that, right? That's just business stuff.
Right.
But if you're talking about shoddy work that's not very good, before you start saying that to other people, you need to tell that Christian why.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't think this was a good deal. I'm not expecting anything, but I think this, and they don't make it right, whatever. But then you can say, hey, you still don't want to badmouth your brother.
Right.
Right. You might say, hey, there's other options. I don't know if I'd use them again. That's not a sin to say, and they're not trying to destroy your business by saying that, because your job is to do good work.
Yeah.
Make it where they don't say that. Make it where they're screaming for people to use you.
Yeah.
That's the heart of the Christian.
And you would think that, again, that's where it comes down to, there's this conscience issue, right? If I've done a shoddy job and my customer thinks that I've done a shoddy job, it's probably going to be in the realm of conscience for me to think, hey, I need to make this right. Okay, I don't want them to go on like that. And if they're being ridiculous, if
which
it's not
can happen,
if it's not a shoddy job and we're being ridiculous, then I would probably bring the other person in. I feel like let's talk about this as brothers here. Let's take the business aside.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this together and see if let's kind of have an arbitration here.
Well, that's where the customer does have to have this. So it's almost like the person doing the business should have the expectation, do all things to the glory of God.
Mm-hmm.
And the customer should too, but they also should have the expectation of nobody's perfect.
Right.
And not be demanding and rude.
Right.
Where it gets twisted is when it's the other way around. When the customer is being unruly because, you should be doing all things to the glory of God. And when the business is saying, nobody's perfect.
Right.
No,
right.
Strive the other way. Right.
Yeah.
And then that will help answer a lot of the problems that you might have in a business relationship too. Because then you also said it. Because where it gets real tight is with money.
Mm-hmm.
Money gets real weird for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Right. You're affecting people's livelihoods, people's homes, all that kind of stuff. And there's one element where we have a clear case in 1 Corinthians 6 where Christians can be tempted to start suing each other over how I didn't get a fair deal. This person said they were going to build this fence with this materials and it was going to cost this much, and now they're charging me twice as much. Right?
Yeah.
Paul would say, do not go to the civil magistrate for that.
It would be a sin to go.
Do you not know you're going to judge angels?
Mm-hmm.
So don't do that, because it's a mockery of what the church is to a watching pagan lost world.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean it's immediately a church discipline issue?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone's suing somebody else, it's there's an immediate conversation with elders being we got to fix this. You should be able to reconcile, because it shows what it shows the world is we can't forgive, we can't reconcile.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't mean we don't pay restitution.
Right.
Right. It doesn't mean we don't make things right. But Paul also says, is it not better to be defrauded than to besmirch the name of Christ?
Right.
And if you're getting defrauded, that's what you do of a church discipline thing within a body. Right. And ideally, within churches that have partnership relationships, you can say, hey, this person did a bad job, and then those elders can talk and figure out what needs to be done, because we all want holiness.
So it's basically for within the realm of business and household, as far as economy goes, for the Christian with disputes, only the two governments are on the table. Like they should first try to work this out themselves. That's basically that kind of family household sphere, right? And if they need arbitration or if they need someone else to judge it fairly, that's when they bring it back into the church.
Yeah.
And not that we want to be like business judges or anything like that, but at the same time, like it's completely off limits to go into the tort system and start trying to, get damages out of the civil courts, because that brings disgrace to God, right? Mm-hmm. It makes the church look just like the world.
Well, because it says we're greedy, we can't forgive, we can't reconcile, there is no gospel.
Right.
I mean, that's what it says.
We steal and swindle just like everybody else does.
Yeah, we're no different. We're not distinct from the world. And so that's why Christians need to strive for these things and have a heart that says, as hard as it is, man, as hard as it is to swallow, is it not better to be defrauded?
Mm-hmm.
Is it not better to be defrauded in that and trust the Lord with it, right? Now, and then the other part of it too is Wilson brings this up, is that like, especially as business opportunities come up in terms of investments or private loans, that he says, do not give out any money you're not happily willing to lose.
Right.
Because sometimes investments go bottoms up. People should pay back their loans. And again, that's where a church discipline issue would be. Mm-hmm. Or you might be like Jesus' parable and forgive the debt.
Yeah.
An opportunity to forgive the debt and show a picture of the gospel.
That's been a principle that my dad has modeled in my life since a child. He's, there's been situations where he's loaned me money at a time, rough times, and I always paid him back, again, because it's a responsibility to pay back. But he had told me one time, because I asked him, I said, Dad, I know money comes between families, and I don't want to put our relationship in jeopardy. Like if something happened and I was later than you expected, or if you were disappointed in how I did this, and he said, son, I'm going to stop you right there. This money is gone as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. I'm giving it to you. It's gone. And that's the way I look at it. And at that point in my life, I looked at that and just thought, man, that's crazy. I can do that. How's he, I would need that money back. And it's thinking back, like that's how far I needed to go, I think, in sanctification, to be able to look at gifts, generosity, and money the right way. Yeah. Like I don't depend on money. And it's sinful to think that you do.
Yeah, like God, Christ or Mammon. Like who's really our God? Who's really one that provides for us, takes care of us, gives us everything we need for life, right? It's Christ.
Now, it doesn't mean you have to go, if a business defrauds you and steals your money, that doesn't mean that you have to go back to them next time.
No.
Right? Whether they're Christian or not.
No.
That's the end of that. And there could be forgiveness without, quote, you don't have to go do business with them again to forgive them.
And when you're doing business, say you're doing business with pagans, I don't necessarily know it's off limit for a Christian to sue that business.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's off limits.
Because you're not talking about the same kind of relationship there of brothers. But like when we loan money or we invest, especially loans, that's where God's law comes in. Mm-hmm. Christians should not loan with interest.
Yeah.
No interest. If you need money and you ask me, Cole, can I borrow some money? I do consider it gone if I give it to you. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm not obligated to, although I would say Christians out of love for one another, depending on what the situation is, should be inclined to give.
Right.
But then I also don't expect any interest back. Mm-hmm. Now, on the flip side, though, I would say the person that borrowed the money, if they are able to, should try to give above and beyond what they got because of that person's generosity towards them.
You would definitely think so. I think that it's one of those situations where, as we trust each other as Christians, there's kind of this understanding like, look, I'm coming to you with money, asking for money, because I'm in a pretty tough spot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not trying to go on a beach vacation with it. There's a situation there.
And listen, like wisdom would say, probably don't borrow money,
right?
Unless you absolutely need it. That's probably what, because like debt is slavery.
Yeah.
Like the Proverbs talk about that. I mean, like you said, if I'm coming to borrow money from you, I'm real rough.
Yeah.
It's real bad, and I have like no other options.
Right.
But I would say like Christians should not. Because that can happen in churches too. I could see a scenario where, well, these people have to be generous to me or whatever. You should not use people as a security blanket, use other church members as a security blanket, and expect loans or expect gifts or whatever.
Right. Like if I went homeless, I think my parents would let me live in their house, but under no circumstances should I expect them to let me live in their house.
Yeah.
Right there, I have no call on that and no right, But
it's the idea what Paul talks about in Galatians, burdens and loads. Everyone, we carry one another's burdens. We bear one another's burdens because there are some things in life that just get too heavy for us, but we all have our own load. Mm-hmm. Like you should be able to carry your own load. And so just using finances wisely, making good investments. Sometimes investments go belly up, and when they do go belly up, listen, if you invest in somebody's business and it goes belly up and you get no money back, and it was because of things that they did wrong. If you invested the money, there's probably a reason you have the money and they didn't. And so it might be an opportunity for you to teach them and disciple them how to do things better as a Christian. But it's not an opportunity to get mad and get angry or just bemoan them or condemn them as stupid, foolish, whatever.
Right.
Let's come alongside and help, or say nothing at all.
Yeah. And I think that is where, like, these two rules that we've covered in this episode are really inextricable from each other.
Yeah.
Right. Like, having a Christian economy depends on trusting one another to work Christianly. Right. Like, you're not going to invest in anyone, as a Christian brother if you don't expect them to work in a Christian way, right? Like, if I'm getting investment money to start a business, you're expecting me to work as unto the Lord in that business.
I want Christians to start businesses that are Christian businesses. That does not mean your logo has to have a Jesus fish,
right?
But that when we talk about Christian business, we mean you serve God and His principles of His Word.
Yeah,
you do business as a Christian.
Yeah.
Just like when we talk about all of Christ for all of life in terms of your family, you raise your kids as a Christian. You be a husband or a wife as a Christian. You be a church member as a Christian. Same thing with business. Being a Christian business does not mean you have to have Jesus' name in your logo, any of that stuff.
Or be printing Bibles.
It means you serve God with your business. And that means you can make money with your business.
Oh, look, there's, it's become popular to think that, in our society today, obviously there's this widespread idea that Christians that rich people are obligated to give a certain amount of their money to the poor. They're not, right? It's a gift. But at the same time, like, there's also this idea that, rich people are kind of distinctly unchristian. That's not true either.
Yeah.
Some of the most godly men in the Bible were wealthy, right?
It's like this funny, I saw it, I don't know where I saw it. I think it was on Twitter or something, but somebody was joking, like, don't turn Acts 2 in the fact that every Christian was giving away their house. Every single Christian was selling their house, because it's like, okay, I sold my house to provide for the needs of this church. And the church takes it. Okay, great. Who has a need? I do. I don't have a house. I mean, it's kind of like that idea. Right? That the idea of building a Christian economy, if let's just boil it down, right? All things to the glory of Christ, working hard unto the Lord, expecting nothing less than justice in our business dealings, and interacting with one another with a mind and heart. I think Wilson gets at this in the book, is I'm striving for peace and unity in any business dealing I'm getting into. That my heart is for peace and unity, not to get what's mine. Right.
Yeah, I think that covers, that kind of thing covers a lot of the possible disputes that could come up, right? Because it's the benefit of the doubt thing. I mean, it's so huge among Christians. It's what keeps Christians unified, is that we trust one another until there's a sin, and then we deal with that, right? We deal with it frankly, we deal with it boldly and honestly, and that maintains relationships too. I think relationships get stronger as we deal with one another with forgiveness, where it's actual forgiveness, transactional. That's how I think of it often with. I know I've talked about it before, but the story of Zacchaeus. Like, I imagine as Zacchaeus was paying back those that he had stolen from, what a testimony of a changed life as Zacchaeus goes, and he walks up to someone and says, I've stolen from you, and here it is back, plus this much more out of generosity, because I love Jesus. What an amazing testimony that is. And that's how Christian economy can work, right? Is we look at, it's all a gift from God, and we can make money.
It's a joy and blessing, right? Like, we want people to provide for their families. So when I'm serving other church members by being a patron of their business, I'm helping them provide for their family. That's a great gift. I love that. I love getting to serve a brother or sister in that way.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
and it's what Christians should be striving for if it's going to take a certain amount of Christian maturity. Immature Christians should have no business dealings with each other because they don't know how to do it yet.
Right. And we're hopefully growing in this. I mean, just think of what a blessing it would be to be able to take your car in to a mechanic and not worry about whether they're lying to you or not.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, because let's be real, right? In these specialized fields, you don't know what they're talking about, right? I mean, you know how it is. They can say anything's wrong with it. You don't know what's going on. It's an amazing blessing to have people that you can trust. If you have a builder come in who build your house and you know that they're giving you a fair price and they're going to do a great job, that's a huge blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the vision, right? Like this whole series is about, we're not there yet, right? We're trying to cast a vision and we're trying to disciple into, this is how we can live together.
Yeah.
Right? This is how we can work together. And I think that vision is what a better time we'll have and what a better legacy we'll leave for our children and grandchildren if we have this Christian economy where we love and trust those who we're doing business and we're providing each other maximum value because we're doing it unto the glory of God. That's just an amazing thought.
Glory of God and the blessing of others. That's how we should be seeing all of our jobs.
Yeah.
If we're all doing our jobs that way, the glory of God and the blessing of others is going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be good.
Well, I don't have anything else to you. All right, good. Well, I hope this has been helpful. Join us again next time on Everyday Discipleship.